Hi, my name is Mark Bowsher-Gibbs. I am a consultant with SAC Consulting, and this short video is an update on the webinar that we had on the 2024 crop trials with SRUC. In this brief video, I'm joined by Professor Fiona Burnett, Neil Havis and Neil Graham, and they're just going to touch on some of the topics that we looked at this season ahead of the more comprehensive agronomic webinars and events that we've got going through January in early 2025.
So the disease pressure in 2024, being persistently wet, really exacerbated the wet weather diseases. So wheat trials, lots of septoria, and in the barley trials, lots of ramularia and rhizosporium came in as well. And really for the wheat, the septoria pressure was quite intense, and then we had a late infection with yellow rust as well. So lots of differentiation between varieties and between fungicide programs. So in the trials we tend to use a lot of barrel so that we get septoria pressure and can really stretch our fungicide programs. And I think the first point is that we really saw that low rating for barrel, the 4.4, we struggled with all the fungicide programs, and we got much better results where we had the more resistant varieties at the same site. So things like Beowulf and things that had stronger scores looked cleaner. So where we're going on with very light programs, we can see now that the septoria is really hard to manage with the azole fungicides where we're using them straight. So we saw them in the season really struggle, and that came through in the yields and it came through in the disease results. And we saw some of the mixed chemistry do better, and some of the newer chemistry still performing relatively strongly. So with better varieties and more mixed programs, we can still get good control of septoria, but we do see where we trial things at low rates or at individual timings that we're really toiling with some of that base chemistry. There are new strains of septoria, so we know that we're getting more complex azole resistance building up in the septoria population. That's not a new story, but it's becoming more marked every season. And then I think what's really coming home to roost is more complex SDHI isolates, so that we're seeing a background of more hard to manage septoria building up. And that is a worry. And it's why we're so reliant on using, mixed programs and really preventative management of septoria. Ramularia, a bit like septoria, it enjoyed that wet season, so we saw quite a lot of ramularia in our spring barley trials, and we really gave the products a good test. So it was the first year where we were commercially using adepidin out on commercial trials and commercial fields and our own trials. So we saw it performing well, but we also saw the kind of graduation between the azole products. So methane trifluconazole giving reasonable control, but prothioconazole really beginning to struggle, and it really is sitting on that backdrop of resistance issues in ramularia. We are winning the battle with ramularia, maybe not the long-term war, but at the minute with new chemistry, we are getting good control in programs, which is very encouraging, and long may that last.
It's been a very taxing year for the trials, starting really in March, April time with extremely wet weather, delaying fertilising going on the trials and also delaying the sowing. Delaying the sowing obviously had knock-on effect come harvest time as well. Spraying season actually went pretty well, but a lot of the sprays were very close together just because the season, they were late, and then we got a reasonable dry spell and warm spell. Harvest, pretty taxing, with crops where the yields were poor to average, probably at the best, and it was a very taxing year. August was particularly hard going with, I think from 10th of August to the 10th of September we had about 8 dry days, so harvesting really didn't happen at that stage. We got going eventually in September and got the combining done, but it was a struggle. It was a knock-on effect. The winter rapeseed we got in, it's across at Oatridge. It struggled with slugs, but it is there. Early wheat's sown in good condition and is growing really well. Our East Lothian site and is all through the ground. Again, looking pretty good. We've got sown some wheat here at Bog Hall, and it's not through the ground as yet, but the ground conditions are, we've managed to get on with pre-em herbicides generally, and things are looking pretty good. As long as the weather holds out, we don't get huge amounts of rain, I think the plant populations will be good. Throughout the winter wheats and winter barleys, yeah, they're looking good. Should be fine. The oilseed rape is a concern just because of the slug damage, but we'll just have to see what happens with that. But yeah, all looking pretty good at the moment.
2024, as you're probably well aware, has been a challenging year in terms of growing crops. Challenging in terms of the constant wetness that we've had, the constant rainfall, so it's meant a lot of disease pressure, primarily from the splash-borne and the wet diseases, things like rhynchosporium, ramularia, in some situations, obviously we've seen septoria in the wheat as well. The diseases which haven't liked it are things like the brown rust, it's been too cool for that, and things like mildew, which actually prefers high humidity, doesn't really like a lot of rainfall. To maximise yield, what we're looking for is a good established crop, as many tillers as possible, and maintain the health and the green leaf area right through the grain filling period. Okay, so the important thing is get your crop well established, which means sow into a warm seed bed. It was a challenge this year, a lot of late sowings. It was consistently wet and it was quite cool, so people were worried would they get the spring barley in. They managed to get it in. Then would it tiller sufficiently as the temperatures picked up a bit? We managed to get the tillering up, and then holding back the disease to get the grain to fill. For grainful, what we've found, Ian Bingham's work on physiology has pointed out, it's the 55 days after flowering. That's the important time for maintaining the green leaf area. If you lose it at that point, you won't maximise your grain fill. You'll get smaller, thinner grains. That potentially means rejections. You get more screenings coming through. So it's a challenge for quality as well as yield. One of the things we've seen is low temperatures this year and low sunlight. So temperature is the main driver of plant development. The sunlight obviously boosts the speed at which the crop develops, and that's something that we've seen low levels of throughout the 2024 season. That's been a challenge. 24, what we've been looking at is for the Scottish Government, the usual suspects trying to develop an IPM programme, looking at alternatives in the crop protection programme, things like elicitors, biostimulants, in combination with lower rates of fungicide, how they would work. But we've also been looking at some of the new products that are coming to market. Specifically this year we're talking about Miravis from Syngenta, which we've seen in trials over a number of years, but this is the first time it's been available for growers to buy themselves and actually see for themselves how good it is against things like rhynchosporium and ramularia. Obviously the fungicide performance trials, which our trials programs contribute to, the results will be coming out very shortly, so farmers will get to see the HDB funded fungicide performance work. The other trial work that we've done, the work for the Scottish Government and some of the other trials, you'll get an update for in January when we do the winter roadshows.